Now that we've learned quite a bit about Berkeley packet filters and how to write and understand BPFs, I want to show you how to use those in Wireshark. And Wireshark really, it'll refer to BPF syntax in the help documentation in many places, but for the most part within Wireshark, you're going to refer to a BPF as a capture filter. And that's because these filters can generally only be used at the time you're capturing packets. That's when the libpcap syntax is used, and that's the only time you're really going to be able to use that. This is a little bit different from the filter bar up here we see at the top of the screen that is used for display filters or Wireshark protocol dissection filters. So for instance, if I go in here and try to type host 8.8.8.8, you'll notice this bar is red here and it tells me that's invalid. I can hit enter and nothing happens. Of course, if I go down here to the bottom, it says invalid filter. 8.8.8.8 was unexpected in this context. So what it's telling me is that this is not a valid filter, and that's because this section is specifically for Wireshark display filters, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit. Capture filters are the BPFs we're talking about, and they can generally only be applied during capture time, so the time at which we're capturing packets to limit the size of the packet capture. So I want to go through an example of how to do that now. Let's say, for instance, let's go ahead and start a packet capture here. I'm just going to click on Ethernet 0 here. I'm going to give it my password so I can capture some packets. And you'll see here we have a lot of stuff going on. Immediately we see we have some ICMP traffic going on. So I see we have 172.16.16.152 talking to 4.2.2.1. Now, this is a pretty small capture. I'm not building a lot of packets at once. After a few seconds, I'm up to about 300 packets, and that's climbing. But let's say I want to leave this capture running for a long time, and I want to get all these ICMP packets, all the packets talking to 4.2.2.1. So whether either if I want to leave this running a long time or I've got so much packet data being sent in at once, for example, let's say I just want to get those specific packets and limit that with a capture filter. So we can do that, and I want to show you how to do that now. To apply a capture filter is pretty easy. I'm going to go ahead and stop the running capture, go up here to capture options, and then you'll see down here I have a section for capture filter for selected interface. You may remember this section earlier when we talked about capturing packets in Wireshark and going through the different preferences. So what I can do is I can actually apply my filter there. So I'm going to go ahead and put in here host 4.2.2.1. And you'll see it's also applied up here at the right next to the selected interface. Now, this is green, which means it's a valid BPF. It determined that's valid, and we're all good to go there. So I'm going to go ahead and click Start here. And you'll see, in this case, every packet being captured is either to or from the host 4.2.2.1. I didn't specify a direction, so we're getting both directions here. It looks like we have some ICMP, but hey, it looks like we also have some DNS traffic to this host as well that we didn't necessarily know about. So that's a cool thing that this filter has turned up for us. So packets coming in at a lot slower rate now. Still several of them, a lot of ICMP traffic, but a fair bit slower than what we saw earlier. So this capture filter is being actively applied now, and it's limiting the amount of packets we have to view, which is exactly what we want it to do. And also take note here as well, we haven't saved this file, but the capture filter is shown up here at the top, host 4.2.2.1. That's shown there, so we can reference that in case you have multiple windows open or in case you forget what filter was applied. It'll show it there. That's nice and handy since you're not seeing it in this bar here. It shows it right there at the top. Now, for example, let's say I want to change the filter around. Let's say I actually only want the traffic destined for 4.2.2.1 instead of either direction. So I'm going to go back to capture options. Go ahead and see that my existing filter is already there. It's still remaining. And go ahead and add DST to it. We're only going to get dest host 4.2.2.1, and I'm going to hit start. And now immediately see the only packets that are showing up in the packet list window have destination 4.2.2.1. And it's quite a few less packets. In this case, we're looking at a ping, so we're only seeing the requests and not the responses back. But our filter is being applied. You see it says up here, dest host 4.2.2.1, and we're getting exactly the packets we would expect to see. So in this case, this was a specific filter we used just for this individual scenario. But let's say, for instance, that this is a filter we want to use often. If I close out a Wireshark and open it back up later, I'm going to lose this. And let's say I don't want to forget the IP address. I don't want to forget the filter. Say it's more of a complex filter or something like that I don't have to deal with rewriting. I want to be able to save that and apply it as I need it. Fortunately, Wireshark will allow us to do that pretty easily. If I go here to capture, instead of going to options immediately, I'm going to go down here to capture filters. And we see we actually have a section for those here. And we see Wireshark actually provides us with a series of capture filters, really designed to serve almost as templates for creating your own capture filters. You'll see a lot of the syntax looks familiar with what we've used so far. Some of it may look a little bit different. For instance, instead of you see things like not ARP, which is not a specific syntax we've covered, but you see a lot of the familiar ones. Here's host 192.0.2.1 IP. Here's some other information. Here's some IPv6 data here as well. So a couple different options here. But what we actually want to do is create our own saved capture filter. And that's really couldn't be easier. To do that, I'm going to click the plus sign down here at the bottom and see it's going to create a new line for me. And it's going to show up in red because in this case, I don't have a valid filter in there yet. So I'm going to go ahead and type dest host 4.2.2.1. See, it's green, so it's accepted that. It's validated that on the fly. And then I'm going to double click over here and give this a name. I'm going to say destination host 4.2.2.1. Hit enter, and that filter is now going to be saved. So I can go ahead and hit OK. Now, if I want to use that filter, pretty easy as well. Back up here to capture and options. You see the filter is already listed here, but I'm going to go ahead and X that out. And in this case, I'm going to hit this little green button right here. And it's actually going to pull up the contents of my capture filters window that I was just looking at. It's going to allow me to look at those filters. And you see we have ours here. It says destination host 4221, which is the name we gave it. And then beside it, it shows the actual filter itself. It shows dest host 4221. So if I just click that, it's going to apply that filter and I can hit start and we're capturing packets again with that filter applied. So the capture filters dialog is what is going to allow you to save those and reference those quickly. If you find yourself writing any sort of complicated capture filter and there's any inkling that you might need to use it again, go ahead and save it in this window. It's really easy to do. If you decide you want to go ahead and get something out of there, you don't need it anymore, click on it, click the minus button, and that will get rid of it as well. Of course, you can also click on one and hit this copy button, and it'll make an exact duplicate of it. So that way, if you're using one of these existing packets, or existing filters as a template, you can just copy it and then edit it. So if I didn't want TCP port HTTP, I could change that to TCP port 443 for HTTPS in this case, and go ahead and go over here and edit that just as well, just like this. In this case, it's not HTTP, it is HTTPS, so we'll call it that. And now we have one for HTTPS TCP port 443, and we just duplicated an existing filter and created our own. I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of that for now. But that's pretty much it for capture filters. They're pretty easy to use within Wireshark when you're capturing via the options dialog, and you have the ability to create and save your own as well. So very easy to get to. Just remember the distinction between where you use capture filters and where you use display filters. As I said, if you try to put a capture filter into the display filter bar, you're gonna have a bad time because it's not gonna work, and that's a little bit frustrating. So that's capture filters in Wireshark.